Latest Lions news. Shocking news has just broken in Allen Park, and you won't believe what's just come out in the media regarding the Lions. Stay tuned. First, Dan Campbell provides an update that few would have expected on the situation with Lions safety Kirby Joseph. Then, out of nowhere, Kareem Hunt showed up at the Lions facility this week, and the timing of that visit raises a question no one wants to ask out loud about Isaiah Pacheco. And to top it all off, there's a linebacker Detroit signed this offseason who just received some brutal news that completely changes the initial outlook. Quick, click the like button before we dive in. Let's start with Joseph, because what Campbell said about him is going to change the way you're thinking about week 1. Alright, let's talk Kirby Joseph, because this is the update everybody's been waiting on. This dude has basically been a ghost since his knee started acting up, and it cost him almost the entire 2025 season. He played in only 6 games. 6! For a guy who's supposed to be your top safety, that's brutal. And here we are, almost a full year later, and Detroit is still just waiting. This morning, Dan Campbell finally stepped up to the podium and gave the people what they wanted. His exact words, "Joseph is doing well." That's the good news. The catch, and there's always a catch with these things, is that he's still not practicing with the team. Campbell didn't throw out a return date either. No, he'll be back week 1. No, give it 2 more weeks. Just vibes and optimism right now. What makes this one tricky is that it's not your typical injury. This isn't a torn ACL where you know exactly what the timeline looks like. Joseph's dealing with a chronic knee issue, cartilage damage that built up over time, not from one big hit. Instead of going under the knife, he's grinding through strength and rehab work, which honestly might be the smarter long-term play, but it also means there's no clean finish line here. Because of all that, he's been parked on the PUP list the entire training camp. He hasn't taken a single rep with his guys, though he has been posting his side work with his trainer, so at least fans know he's grinding. Bottom line, with week 1 creeping up fast and Joseph and Brian Branch both stuck on PUP, Detroit's secondary is about to get tested early, whether they're ready or not. Now here's where it gets interesting. While everyone's watching Joseph's recovery, Detroit quietly brought in a name that's making people ask a completely different question, and it's about Pacheco. Okay, now let's get into the one that's got people scratching their heads. Kareem Hunt showed up in Detroit this week, and I'm gonna be honest with you, my first reaction was, wait, why? Hunt is 31 years old at this point. He's had stops in Kansas City, he's had stops in Cleveland, he led the league in rushing all the way back in 2017, but that was a long time ago in NFL years. He's not that explosive league-leading back anymore, so when a team like the Lions, who already have a running back room, bring in a guy like Hunt for a visit, you gotta ask what's really going on. And there's really 2 ways to read this. Option 1, and this is the one that should worry Lions fans, maybe Isaiah Pacheco's injury is worse than what we've been told. Campbell's been saying all along they expect Pacheco back by week 1, but you don't just randomly bring in a 31-year-old free agent running back for fun. If Pacheco's timeline was rock solid, would Hunt even be walking through that door? That's the question nobody wants to say out loud, but everybody's thinking. Option 2 is a little less dramatic. Maybe Detroit just isn't fully sold on the depth behind Jatamir Gibbs and Pacheco. Right now, that competition for the RB3 spot includes guys like Jacob Sailors, Sione Vaki, Travion Williams, and Jabari Small. Maybe the coaching staff watched camp and preseason and just didn't love what they saw enough to trust it heading into the season. Now, let's talk about what Hunt actually brings to the table, because it's not nothing. Last year, he played all 17 games, ran for 611 yards, and scored 8 touchdowns. That's a solid, respectable season from a guy his age. If Detroit adds him and gets Pacheco back healthy, you're looking at a rotation of Gibbs, Pacheco, and Hunt, and on paper, that's honestly pretty scary for opposing defenses. But here's the thing that keeps nagging at me. Campbell himself said this roster battle at running back was one of the hardest to figure out. So if Sailors or Vaki are legit options, why go outside the building for an older name instead of just trusting the guys you've been developing? That disconnect is exactly what makes this Hunt visit feel like more than just a depth move. Keep an eye on this one, because it might tell us a lot more about Pacheco than Detroit's letting on right now. That Hunt visit is one thing to watch. But this next update just dropped, and it's about a guy Detroit paid good money for this offseason, and it's not good. Alright, last one, and this is not a fun update if you're a Lions fan. Damone Clark, the linebacker Detroit brought in this offseason, is out injured, and it doesn't sound like he's coming back anytime soon. Campbell addressed it before practice on Tuesday, and the news isn't great. Turns out Clark actually got hurt several weeks ago. This isn't something that just happened, and according to Campbell, he's not walking through that door again soon. That's a tough blow for a guy Detroit specifically went out and signed this offseason after his time with the Cowboys and the Texans. What stings a little more here is hearing Clark talk about how locked in he was to be a part of this Lions defense. Before all this went down, he was talking about his relationship with defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard, saying stuff like, "I always want to get better, I don't want to stay the same," and how Shepard keeps him sharp by pointing out what he's doing right and what he needs to clean up. This is a guy who came in with the right mindset, calling himself a sponge, wanting to soak up everything he could because he knows exactly the type of player he wants to become. And even if the defensive role wasn't guaranteed right away, Clark had already carved out a lane for himself on special teams. He talked about not taking that opportunity for granted either, saying he's got people back home who do anything just to be on a practice squad, so he wasn't about to waste his shot. Now all of that gets put on pause while he deals with this injury. On top of the Clark news, there was also an update on cornerback Ennis Rakestraw. After Detroit's 17-13 win over the Commanders, Rakestraw got asked about leaving practice hurt the week before. Turns out it wasn't a new injury. Well, he'd already been dealing with an ankle issue from camp, and a bad step just aggravated it again. Rakestraw didn't sound worried though, saying everybody's gonna deal with injuries at some point. It's just about who pushes through it. He made it clear he's not slowing down and is actually using it to get better at managing his body through the grind of a season. So between Joseph's uncertain timeline, this weird Kareem Hunt visit, and now Clark being out indefinitely, Detroit's got some real question marks heading into week 1 on both sides of the ball. Honestly, between Joseph, Pacheco's mystery injury, and Clark being out indefinitely, this defense and backfield are shakier than people realize going into week 1. What's your read on all this? Drop it in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next Lions update.